Welcome to beautiful Bozeman, Montana. My name is Matt with We're in the Rockies, and my wife Cheryl is behind the camera. We are going to spend a couple of days here in the Bozeman area. We're going to visit the site of a major earthquake. We're going to visit some old west towns in southern Montana. We're going to visit Bozeman and do all the things we can do in Bozeman. We're going to go to a little resort on the north end of Yellowstone, and we're going to show you things to do along the way. Montana is the fourth largest state and is sandwiched between Canada and Wyoming. Glacier National Park is its most famous park, but down south is part of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem and is scenic in its own right. In this video, we'll focus on Bozeman and southern Montana, especially the area near Yellowstone. We'll visit three beautiful valleys, all carved by rivers exiting Yellowstone: Madison Valley, Gallatin Valley, and Paradise Valley.
First is Quake Lake. This is a tragic story that really needs to be told. So in 1959, on August 17th, close to midnight, an earthquake struck the Hebgen Lake area. The epicenter was right underneath the lake. It resulted in the death of 28 campers, and this isn't too far away from West Yellowstone. So the first thing to think about is the earth shook very hard. It was felt in 8 states. This was that big of an earthquake. When it happened, the rocks tumbled down and went halfway up the other side of the canyon, and it created a dam blocking the Madison River. When all this rumbling happened, it caused so much shaking that the water in the dam overflowed. People thought that the dam had collapsed. Fortunately, it didn't. When the landslide happened, it was so loud and it created 100-mile-an-hour winds that it was snapping the pine trees like toothpicks. They said that the air smelled like pine. And the rescue of the people that were down here, it took several groups and agencies to rescue them, but they worked together to get them. So now we've got the Quake Lake Visitor Center that we can come visit, and it's kind of on your way into Yellowstone. It's free of charge. It's a pretty small little visitor center, but one of the things that makes this visitor center special is they have a great 20-minute video describing the events of the Quake Lake earthquake, and there's panels of glass around the video where you can look out into the canyon and you can see the bare side of the canyon where the rock slide occurred. You can actually see that, and then you're looking into the Quake Lake, which is really quite a creepy thing to look at because there's trees poking out of it that are 65 years old that are still there. I remember the first time I saw Quake Lake, I didn't know what it was. I just thought, this is eerie. Why are all these trees in this lake? But it's because of this earthquake. So at the visitor center, you can watch that video. They have a nice junior ranger program, a few little exhibits. And then across the street, you can go on a little hike to Monument Boulder. And it's one of the boulders that fell from one side of the canyon to the other. And there's the names of the 28 people that perished during the 1959 earthquake.
Up next is Virginia City, Montana, as well as Nevada City, Montana. So these are two old west towns that are located about an hour outside of Yellowstone, and they're located near Ennis, Montana as well, which we're gonna go to after this. It's a little funny because Virginia City and Nevada City, but they're in Montana. So we got Virginia and Nevada represented in Montana here. These old west towns are legit old west places to visit. So a lot of towns around the west are kind of like fake old west towns in a way. But these have been wonderful. So they really are gold rush towns built back in the 1860s. Like many gold rush towns, they were lawless towns. I mean, there were some crazy stories of things that went on in Virginia City and Nevada City. There was a group called the Road Agents who were these bad guys, but the town didn't know about it for a while, and finally they ended up kind of hanging a bunch of them. The sheriff, they thought maybe he was a good guy, he turned out to be a bad guy. I mean, all those kind of old west stereotypical things that you hear about in the movies and all that. This is kind of what happened in Virginia City and Nevada City. These are worthy of a day visiting here. So we actually got here about halfway through the day and have run out of time. We didn't really know how much to allot, and I wish we would have allotted more time. So some of the things that you can do if you visit these towns is you can do a train ride from one town to the next, and then they'll bring you back on the train. You can do a stagecoach ride. You can do a fire engine ride on a really cool old red fire engine. And so they have a lot of activities here. And then the two cities are a little different. So Virginia City, what you see behind me is all Virginia City, and this is the main street, and these buildings are authentic. These are original from my understanding. Of course, I'm sure some of them have, been touched up quite a bit, and it's an operating town. There are businesses here. It's a commercial town. There's restaurants. We went to a vaudeville show. We really liked it. I thought it was pretty fun. All right, thank you. There's a candy shop here that you can take the kids to, just a big candy shop. Another thing you can do here is you can get the map. Both towns will give you a map and you can walk around the towns, and they have probably over 70 stops in each of them maybe, that you can just go around and look at the buildings. Many of the buildings that you see here are stores, but many of them are actually just historical artifacts. So you can just go look in there. They've kind of redone them a little bit. So they have like a barber shop, they had a barn, they had the telephone operator, you know, some general stores there with the old cash registers and all the things that are in there. And that was really nice too. So you just kind of follow the map and walk around and see all these really cool historical cities or historical buildings. We also ate at a German restaurant called the Road Agent's Roost. And so it's kind of funny that we were in this Old West town, but maybe the best restaurant in town from what we heard was this German restaurant. And that was kind of funny too, because they had this Old West theming in there with John Wayne and these wanted posters next to some Bavarian cups and things like that. So that was kind of an interesting thing. And then over in Nevada City, which is about a 5-minute drive from here, but again, you could take a little train there if you want to. That is an actual state park, and it is a legit ghost town. There's nobody that lives there. It's not a commercial center or anything like that. And you could just walk around many really well restored, well taken care of buildings. So if you end up out on the west side of Yellowstone, make Virginia City and Nevada City part of your plans. It really was cool. We were actually surprised because, you know, we're used to kind of going to these Old West towns. We were surprised at how nice this area is. We would recommend probably giving it about a full day, or at least maybe like 3/4 of a day, so you can get here and do some of those activities, those little tours. Oh, and then the one thing I didn't mention is the cemetery where they hung the road agents is up on the hill. You can drive up there and overlook the town and see some of the grave sites of those road agents that were hung.
Next is a little town of Ennis, Montana. Ennis is just a one-street town. That's pretty much all there is to do here is to walk up and down the street. You know, a lot of these cities in the West have statues. At home we have Mustangs that are all over Ogden that are painted. You see bison in other cities, but in Ennis, fish are king. In fact, this statue cracked us up because we have a fish with fish painted on it. That's how into fish they are in Ennis. And so our thoughts about Ennis are that I don't know if you would go out of your way to come to Ennis unless you're a fly fisherman. There are plenty of fly fishing excursions you can book on the beautiful Madison River. It is just gorgeous around here, and we've really enjoyed our time this morning because it's just these heavenly Montana mornings in the summer. If you ever have a chance to visit Montana in the summer, you've got to do it because you just get away from the heat and it's so peaceful and chill, and these old western towns are so cool. But Ennis is nice because of all the fly fishing, if that's what you're into. And we've noticed that a lot of the cafes and restaurants, like Montana's so chill, they're kind of like, oh, we might open, we might not. So it's just kind of a chill atmosphere. So we say that Ennis is probably worth a little stop on your way to Virginia City, do a little stroll on Main Street, and then head on your way.
Finally, we stayed at the Red Bear Inn and they generously rescheduled our reservation when we got COVID. We definitely recommend staying there if you were in the area.
Okay, we're back in Bozeman, Montana. The first thing to do in the city of Bozeman, Montana is hike the M. So this is a big M on the side of the mountain. Now it's Bozeman, so why is there an M? The M stands for Montana State University. The Montana State Bobcats are here in Bozeman. Now, Cheryl and I lived in Missoula, Montana for a summer about a decade ago. They also have an M on their mountainside. They are the Montana Grizzlies, although maybe their M is for Missoula. Here, maybe they should have a B for Bozeman or Bobcats. But they have an M on the mountain, and you can hike up to this M, and that's kind of one of the main things to do here. Funny thing is, Cheryl's actually hiked to 3 M's. We got Missoula, Bozeman, and Morgan, Utah. All these hikes, when you come up to the little rock formation like this, they're pretty steep usually, and then you get a beautiful view of the town of Bozeman. So now let's head down to the town and show you what there is to do in Bozeman.
Next is the Museum of the Rockies. This is a pretty diverse little museum. They've got exhibit on some of the Plains Indians. They've got a really cool dinosaur exhibit. They have a 1940s exhibit of what life was like in the 1940s. They have a living history farm outside, a planetarium, and even a little exhibit about the beginnings of Yellowstone.
So this is one of the top things to do in Bozeman. I'd actually heard quite a bit about this Museum of the Rockies, and it's worth the money. It's run by the Montana State University, and so it is well done. We've been to many of these kinds of museums around the West. They have like exhibits on Native Americans, dinosaurs, some of the history exhibits. They have one for Yellowstone's 150th birthday this year. They didn't put that much effort into that one, I didn't think. They do have a living history museum here, and behind me is the blacksmith shop. That was pretty fun, actually, seeing the blacksmith. You know, it's kind of funny. Around the West, we have been to dinosaur tracks. I mean, we've seen dinosaur tracks in the Southwest.
There were a lot of dinos out here.
A lot of dinos in the Rocky Mountains and in the Southwest. And of course, here they have unbelievable collection of T-Rex heads and all that stuff.
Something I think special about this dinosaur museum is that it has several sizes of different dinosaurs. Like they'll have the babies and then juveniles and then adult skulls, and so you can kind of see the difference. It's really quite educational and I thought interesting. And then there's even, you can see kind of what the dinosaur skins look like. They left impressions in the stone, and I've never seen that at any of the other dinosaur museums, so I thought that was interesting. I think this is an okay museum. I like the museum in Cody quite a bit better. And to tell you the truth, like we're in Bozeman, and what I'm itching to do is go tubing on the river. That's what I really want to be doing, not seeing a museum. Next in Bozeman, Montana is to just walk up and down Main Street. Main Street has a lot of fun things on it. There's a lot of just little local shops with window displays that are fun to look at. There's murals, there's some little art pieces throughout the city, and just it's a really cute atmosphere. It's only a couple blocks long. There's hanging flower baskets. And one of the great things about walking up and down Main Street is that in the summer, I call them the magical Montana summers. They're just so nice, like perfect weather. It's light until later, and it's just a fun atmosphere. And there's lots of people just out and about walking around, so it's not like Virginia City or Ennis where it's just kind of a ghost town. You know, you've kind of got a little city vibe here. You actually have to look a little bit for parking. Now, one thing you need to think about when you come to do Main Street is a lot of these local shops close early, like 5 o'clock. So if you want to actually go in the stores, I would recommend getting here no later than 3 o'clock because many of them do close at 5. We got here later when most of these shops were closed, and we still really enjoyed Main Street. The other thing I would say to do at Main Street is get something to eat. Bozeman has so many highly rated restaurants for breakfast or for dinner. There were so many great reviews online that we really didn't know where to go, so we just kind of walked along the street, and then we came across this cute place called Lapa Grill, and I'd been itching for some kind of like Mexican food, and it was perfect. They had some really unique dishes, but what drew us to that restaurant was the patio seating. It was like a party outside. I noticed they had a fire pit if it was colder, but it's a nice warm night. They didn't have it going. The other fun thing about it is Montana is a great place to bring a dog. Montanans love dogs. And so at the patio seating we were at, a lot of people had their dogs with them, and it was fun. I would say definitely give yourself an hour or two to check out Main Street if you're visiting Bozeman.
It's clean, it's fairly long, it's got some nice historic buildings, and I would say the only drawback is it's kind of noisy. So it's got a 4-lane road there. It's kind of noisy. But other than that, nice place to walk around and a lot going on. The next morning we ate breakfast at the Western Cafe, which happens to be next door to the Lapa Grill. This was an A+++, with great Western decor, including old-time advertisements for Yellowstone, Glacier National Park, and Virginia City. I got the Bobcat breakfast and highly recommend it. The next thing to do is Drinking Horse Mountain hike. Actually, we are here at the summit of Drinking Horse Mountain right now. The hike to get up here is about 2 miles, and then you need to go down. So coming up, one of the nice things about these trails here, the last 2 trails that we've gone on, the M and Drinking Horse Mountain, is they have an easy route up and a harder route up. The easy route is still steep and hard, it's just that there's more switchbacks. So this has been beautiful, and one of the great things about this hike is you get to see both valleys. So on the other side of me there is Bozeman and the Gallatin Valley, And then behind me here, I'm actually not quite sure what this valley is named, but I know that these mountains here are called the Bridger Mountains, and this is just a different view here on the other side of the mountain. This hike is much better than hiking the M that we did earlier. So hike the M only if you want to say you hiked the M, or if you want to get up to one of those formations, those like letters on the mountainside that you see sometimes when you drive around. But if you want the better hike, do Drinking Horse Mountain here. The views are beautiful in all directions, and the hike is just gorgeous, and there's a little more shade as well. It's a little more forested, a little more shady, so this was a better hike. So earlier in this video, we were at Virginia City. That was a gold rush town. Bozeman is here because of Virginia City. So Virginia City is on the west side of Yellowstone. So people who were coming from the east on their gold rush to Virginia City, they had a really hard time getting there because in their way is Yellowstone. And people didn't go through Yellowstone in the 1860s. And the Tetons are right there as well. And so that was really hard to cross over to get to the gold fields or the gold mines. So John Bozeman, a guy named John Bozeman, kind of paved a trail going north around Yellowstone to get to Virginia City. And he ended up establishing the city of Bozeman here. So that's why Bozeman even exists. It's very connected to Virginia City. That was the primary target in Montana in the early days. Now the mountains here are called the Bridger Mountains. They're named after the mountain man Jim Bridger. Some people say Jim Bridger was actually the one who created the Bozeman Trail, but it just ended up getting Bozeman's name. Jim Bridger, a very famous mountain man who told many cool stories about some of the places that he saw, including Yellowstone. And there's actually a Fort Bridger named after him in Wyoming as well. But wow, just a very cool area, a lot of history here, a lot of this Old West stuff, a fun place to visit. Okay, the next thing to do is to float on some tubes. This is the Madison River that we're on right now. So the Madison River leaves Yellowstone National Park. It actually starts inside Yellowstone. It leaves Yellowstone and it flows north to the Missouri River. It was named by Lewis and Clark. They named it after James Madison, who was serving under Thomas Jefferson and later became the President of the United States.
So I knew that when we drove into Bozeman that I had to do this activity, even though we weren't planning on it. I saw these tubes at the Madison River Company and thought, we've got to do this. And so most of their floats go like from 11:30, they'll start those at around 11:30 until maybe 3 o'clock. You can call and book your rental, but we called the day of and had no problem. It's $30. They offer a shuttle service so that you're not having to drive 2 cars. What I love about this river float is that the river is shallow. It only gets up to about mid-thigh at the deepest. In fact, I haven't even gotten to any spot where it's deep. And it doesn't require a lot of effort. They tell you, just stay in your tube. Don't get out of the river, just stay in the river and float on down. And they create these really cool flotillas. Yes, these flotillas are, they strap your tubes together and you can get a tube in the middle and get like a cooler for your drinks, bring a radio, listen to music. So it really makes it a nice experience. We've got our smaller children with us. They gave them a life jacket because they're under 13 years old. But this is just, I feel like anyone can do this. As long as you have someone in your group that can maybe get you back in the middle of the river if you float to the side, you're good. I mean, I'm even thinking Matt's parents could do this if they wanted to. It's really, this is the easiest float you can do on a river.
Special little shout out to our daughter for recording us while we're on the river.
Hello. And then the last thing I wanted to say is, in my opinion, this is the best thing to do in Bozeman.
Okay, I've got kind of 2 or 3 on the next one here. So the next thing to do is to visit the Sculpture Park, I think is what they call it. And this heads out from the library and it goes on a trail that just goes past some kind of artistic creations that people have made there. That's one of the things I really like about Bozeman and about college towns in general, is that they do spend money and they value art. And then also nature as well. And so they have a whole set of trails around Bozeman. They call it the Main Street to Mountain Trail System. And so you could just go forever, hiking, walking, biking, and get all over the place on these really cool trails. So what we did, we started in the sculpture garden down below here, and then we ended up coming over to Burke Park. And of course we happened to be here at sunset. enjoying this gorgeous view here. You've got the mountains over here and the sun setting here. It's really pretty. I don't think it's quite as pretty as Missoula though. So we've been kind of having this little debate as we go through as to which city we like better, Bozeman, Montana or Missoula, Montana. This sunset, this is really beautiful, and it's just really kind of cool how all the trails connect. And like I said, they really value nature and they keep their parks open. I mean, they have many parks. Definitely get out of your car, walk around, check out the art, the trails, and don't miss the sunset in Montana. Okay, up next is the Montana Grizzly Encounter. This is located between Bozeman and the north entrance to Yellowstone and would be a nice little stop on the way. So what this is a bear park. So you pay your money to come in. I think for us it costs about $30 to enter for our family of 4. You literally just park and here's the bear for you. We've been to many bear parks before. The Grizzly and Wolf Discovery Center is in West Yellowstone and is a highly educational facility, but the bears aren't as close. Bearizona, near the Grand Canyon, is a drive-through park with many bears and other animals and is probably the best bear park we've ever seen. Bear World in Rexburg, Idaho is also a drive-through park, but is much more kid-friendly and has been a source of memories and joy for us because we've taken our kids there many times over the years. This one is not on par with those when you are talking about the facilities or the exhibits. There's almost no interpretation here or exhibits or anything like that. You basically just park and you walk out here. This little area right here is what you see, and they bring out one bear at a time. And right now Bella is out there and she is so playful, and she's just throwing the stick around and batting it around, and she's playing in the water. And that has been really cool. So while this is not the same as many of the other bear parks that we've been to, I would say that this is probably the closest I've seen a grizzly bear and the most playful that I've seen a grizzly bear. Not as long of an activity as one of the other places that we've been to. I also don't think it's quite as expensive as those other places. And the pass is good for 2 days, which is, we're gonna be coming back through here tomorrow, so maybe we'll stop and see what bear is out here tomorrow. I don't mean to downplay it at all, because the thing is, if you're gonna go to a bear park, you wanna see the bear, and this is a really, really up close and great way to see a grizzly bear. I was asking Cheryl, what do you think? Would you rather see a grizzly bear in captivity up this close playing around, or would you rather see one in the wild that's way far off like you might see in Lamar Valley and Yellowstone? She was actually a little conflicted on that, and I probably am too, actually. It's really cool to see them up close. The skulls are just so enormous. The claws are like that long. I mean, it is really cool. She's so fun. She is. That is super cool. I've never seen one even close to this close in the wild. They're rescued bears. Typically, they're rescued when bears start to go into neighborhoods and feed on people's garbage and stuff like that. In fact, over here, there's a couple of coolers that they have, like a drink cooler or an ice cooler, that are just torn apart. So you can tell that they've let the bears have at it and have just shredded these things apart. So, you know, when the bears kind of get too comfortable around humans, they either have to put them down or have them come and stay at a place like this. So it's really nice that there are places like this that are around here. The guy here told our group here that these bears eat 25 pounds of meat a day. He says he estimates it costs around $2,000 a day to feed one bear. That's crazy. So a lot of that food is donated by grocery stores and hunters and things like that that help, you know, keep these guys alive and stuff like that, and help keep these places going, which again is great because then they won't put the bears down if you have a place to put them. Oh yeah. Okay, up next is Chico Hot Springs. So what this is a resort, and it is located in Paradise Valley. I mean, how great is that? Paradise Valley, and it really is like paradise. It's a beautiful valley. This is the valley that you would take on your way from Bozeman into Yellowstone. Chico Hot Springs is located maybe about 15 to 30 minutes outside of the gate for Yellowstone National Park, outside of the north gate. This is a really old resort. This was created around 1900. Some people would come and stay here, and then they'd take the old horse and carriage into Yellowstone through Roosevelt Arch. Really pretty cool. So staying here is kind of like going back in time, and that's the whole idea of it. They have many different lodging options here. They have their regular old original hotel, which is where we stayed in, and it's quite basic. There's no TV, no phone connection, no internet, and that's the whole point of it, is you want to disconnect and slow down. No AC.
And a shared bathroom.
And shared bathrooms, that's right. So that's where we stayed, which was kind of in the original building, which you can see behind me here, that little white and green building right there. But then since then, they've added on a lot. So they have some covered wagons that you can stay in. They have many different lodging opportunities for all budgets. So that's pretty cool. You have a lot of options to stay. And then when you stay here, you are given free entry into their hot springs. Okay, so the hot springs is, of course, one of their famous things that they're known for here. So the hot spring is really more like a swimming pool, but the water is a natural hot spring coming from the hills here. So it's warm. I think at one point it's like 102 degrees or something, and then down at the other end it's like 80 something degrees.
98.
98, that's right. Yeah, so 98 degrees to 100 something degrees. So it's really kind of like a swimming pool, but you can sit in there and just enjoy a soak as well if you want to do that. So that's a couple of things that there are to do here. There's also horseback rides. They have a barn here that you can do some horseback rides off of here. They have many other adventure activities. You can rent some paddle boards and some water sports and things like that. They have a very cute little Chico gift shop here that we got some lavender donuts. What are they called?
Lemon lavender.
Lemon lavender donuts. So anyway, this is just, and then they have a garden out there. You can just go sit out in the trees in the garden area and just relax. That's the whole point of Chico Hot Springs, is to come here to relax. Now, if you were visiting here for Yellowstone, we generally don't recommend staying far outside of the park as a jumping off point. We want to stay either in the park or kind of right next to the entrances to the park. So Gardiner is down the road here, and Gardiner, Montana was hit by the floods this year. Gardiner, Montana is right on the border of Yellowstone. And then over on the other side is West Yellowstone. That's also right on the west entrance border to Yellowstone. We say try to stay in those two towns or within the park. But a lot of people are coming out here and they're okay to do a lot of driving, and so we've talked to plenty of people who are staying in these little resorts kind of near Yellowstone that are maybe about 30 minutes away from the entrance. And that's fine too if you're okay with doing a lot of driving. The thing is, Yellowstone, once you get into the park, now the driving really begins. So that's why we suggest staying closer to the park. But again, you can stay here just as part of your trip, or you can stay here as a jumping off point to Yellowstone. Both are common.
I was going to say something I thought would be nice would be just their hot springs are open until 11, and so it'd be nice to get in the hot springs after a day of sightseeing. It'd be really relaxing.
Exactly, and that's kind of my tip for you here, is to typically get in the hot springs in the evening or early in the morning. It opens at 7 o'clock, and so people like to just get in there early in the morning, these kind of cool Montana mornings, and watch the sun rise over the hill while you're in the hot springs. Or yes, getting in after you see Yellowstone would be a pretty cool thing to do as well. Okay, one of the other main things to do here at Chico is to eat at the dining room. So you need reservations for this, and it's pretty expensive. It probably runs you around $100 to $150 for two to eat in the dining room. Quite a fancy thing, and it's actually something that is frequented by Hollywood stars and has been for quite some time. So it's kind of a famous little place. They have actually shot the television show Yellowstone, the Yellowstone TV show, here, right very close to here. And so some of the actors have come through here, and it's kind of been long. Montana in itself has kind of been like a Hollywood place to go for quite some time. Whitefish, Montana is a popular place, and down here is kind of a popular place too for some actors. So anyway, the dining room, upscale dining room, that's great. They have a poolside grill that we ate at, which I really enjoyed. But yeah, so just, Chico Hot Springs, come and relax and get away from it all and come to the mountains. Okay, up next is to visit Big Sky Resort. So, as Cheryl mentioned earlier, this is located about an hour south of Bozeman, about an hour north of West Yellowstone, so kind of in the middle there. Now, if you're flying into Bozeman this year, by the way, you're not going to enter Yellowstone through the north entrance because it's closed. So you could certainly go to the West Yellowstone entrance. To get there, you could come through this beautiful valley. So Big Sky is located in the Gallatin Valley, along the Gallatin River. As we were driving through this valley, you're driving right along the river for most of the way, and it's really a beautiful drive and forested and all that stuff. And it was really fun to see all the people along the river that were kayaking and rafting and stuff like that. Then we did Onsel Falls, which was just gorgeous. Really a cool hike and a beautiful waterfall.
Onsel Falls is great. It's a mile out, mile back, mostly level. There's a few little ups and downs. It's the inverted mountain. You're gonna start going down and then go back up. But it's shady, it's very forested, and it has a beautiful waterfall at the end. I would say if you're in Big Sky, Montana, you gotta do this. It's good.
And now we're here at Big Sky. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the time to do Big Sky properly. So this is a ski resort, but during the summer, they have many summer activities that you can do. They have a little lake down at the base of the resort. So Cheryl is dying to go kayaking on that lake down there. If we had planned this out a little better, we probably would have given ourselves more time to do something like that. And then they have many other activities. You can pay to take the gondola to the top and get some really scenic overlooks. They have some nice little free activities right here in this little town square. They've got Jenga, cornhole, fun activities for the kids. They can pan for gold and stuff.
There's some lassoing going on over there.
Oh yeah, they're lassoing some bowls and stuff like that. So there's a lot of hiking, there's a lot of mountain biking. One of the cool things about these resorts is you can take the gondola up and it'll carry your mountain bike and then you can ride it down. There's disc golf that you can do. So it's very similar to Teton Village and Park City, Utah, some of these resorts that we've been to before. And they're pretty fun and they're family friendly. They've got climbing walls. I mean, there's a lot going on at these resorts. And they're always, of course, in the beautiful mountains.
But if you want to do that, you need to come between 10 and 5. That's when they do it.
Yeah, so everything's kind of shut down while we're here now. And again, we're kind of running out of time anyway because we're headed to West Yellowstone. But we've really enjoyed the drive up here. It's beautiful. And there are certainly a lot of activities to keep you busy. And then there's Onsel Falls. So that's our extent of doing Big Sky. We just kind of did a little day trip on our way from Bozeman to West Yellowstone.
Last up, we traveled to West Yellowstone. West Yellowstone is not in Yellowstone National Park. West Yellowstone is actually a city outside of Yellowstone by the west entrance. And we did something we've been wanting to do for a long time.
We went to the Playmill Theater here. This theater has been here for over 50 years, which kind of blows me away, actually. This is just a really small town. It's about 1,000 people that live here in West Yellowstone. It is the most common entrance to Yellowstone, though, so they have an audience, and they've been here for 50 years.
I have read reviews about this for the last couple of years, and they were glowing. People just love it, and I have to say, it exceeded my expectations. It was completely delightful. I don't think I'm ever going to go take a trip to Yellowstone again without doing this as part of my trip.
We commented to each other last night, it was the best small production we've ever seen. So this was like on par with like Branson, Missouri, I would say, maybe maybe better. They were so good, they were awesome. And we sat singing in the rain and wow, what a fun performance. And the thing is, the actors, this is what was so great, is that the actors went around and met us and led us to our seats before the play and interacted with us and our kids. It really made our kids feel special. And then at intermission, they bring out the treats to you. You don't go to the stand. They bring them out to you and you can buy them. And again, the actors just took the time to talk with us and our kids and take interest. That was really cool.
It was so cool. And their treats were top notch. They had Dole Whips, which were delicious, homemade hot fudge sundaes, and they're really famous for their fudge. And so, I mean, I felt like getting the concessions was really part of the experience. Normally I'm kind of whatever with concessions, but this was like, it was like a party intermission. And
very small
yes,
environment too, and it did feel like a party.
Here's our little insider tip is, first of all, reserve your tickets beforehand. They do sell out. It's a small theater. It only has about 240 seats. So reserve your tickets beforehand. And then make sure you show up half an hour early at least, because they do singing, like a lot of fun musical numbers before, just for fun. And they even do an audience sing-along, which, I mean, they sang the stupid Red Sox Sweet Caroline song, and I didn't care. I sang along too and had a great time. So it was great. I just cannot recommend this experience enough.
I want to give McCade a shout out, who is like the next Danny Kaye. That guy was so awesome. He just tap danced, he did flips, he sang, he was amazing. And then give a shout out to Abby, who is from our hometown of Ogden, Utah.
Up next is Yellowstone.
This line that you see right here is the border between West Yellowstone and Yellowstone National Park.
We have so many resources on that, including a playlist, our website, we'reintherockies.com. And if you really want to make planning your trip a breeze, we sell a travel guide for Yellowstone that includes a 4-day itinerary featuring Old Faithful and Grand Prismatic and some fun things to do outside the park. And Matt's amazing audio guide. 3 hours worth of stories to listen to as you drive around the park. We want to end this video with our very favorite things. So My favorite was the float down the Madison River on the tubes with the whole flotilla concept of strapping the tubes together. The play last night at the Playmill Theater just stole my heart. I cannot wait to go see another one. As far as hikes go,
Onsel Falls was, I think, our favorite hike. That's located in Big Sky, Montana. And then Drinking Horse Mountain in Bozeman was our two favorite hikes.
and the best small town we went to was Virginia City.
The Earthquake Lake Visitor Center. If you are in West Yellowstone, I think you need to go check this out. Bozeman, Montana was really nice, but maybe not quite as nice as I was hoping. I'd heard a lot about Bozeman. It's kind of a trendy thing. I think Bozeman is more trendy in terms of people moving there. So it really was like the fastest growing city for a couple of years in a row in the country, I think. But in terms of just visiting there, it's not really a destination, but it's part of a Yellowstone trip. It could be a very nice part of that. So if you need a game plan for Yellowstone, we have you covered. Make sure to go to our website, we'reintherockies.com. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, go west, young traveler.